What the heck is going on here?
Going viral takes no skill, or at least that's what most people think. Post enough nonsense, and eventually something will stick, right? But what if that's not true? What if the strangest, most nonsensical viral hit of the year was actually designed to succeed? This is Skibidi Toilet, a series so bizarre it shouldn't exist, and yet it's pulling in views that rival Netflix shows. Parents hate it, kids are obsessed with it, and nobody really understands why it works. But here's the thing, the creator behind it might have known exactly what they were doing. And if that's true, it means viral success isn't random at all. It's a formula. At first glance, Skibidi Toilet looks like pure nonsense. A human head popping out of a toilet, screeching to a distorted TikTok sound. The kind of video you'd expect to see once, laugh at, and forget about the next day. But here's the strange part. It didn't disappear. In fact, it did the exact opposite. The video was uploaded in February of 2023 by a Russian creator named Alexei Gerasimov. On the surface, he looked just like another random YouTuber experimenting with Source Filmmaker, a free animation tool that's been floating around since the Half-Life era. But if you start digging, things feel less like an accident and more like a setup. Because Alexei hadn't appeared out of nowhere. For nearly a decade, he'd been posting bizarre experiments online. Short, surreal, often confusing clips that most people ignored. But looking back, they feel less like random uploads and more like training. Even the soundtrack of that first Skibidi video wasn't random. It was stitched together from two songs that were already trending separately on TikTok. Give It To Me by Timbaland and Dom Dom Yes Yes by Bizzare King. And by combining them, Alexei created something instantly recognizable, but strange enough to stand out. And then there's the inspiration he admitted to in interviews, TikTok edits, fast-cut memes, even recurring nightmares about toilets. It sounds ridiculous, but when you put those pieces together, it feels less like a coincidence and more like someone quietly preparing the perfect viral storm. Which makes you wonder, how much of Skibidi Toilet was luck, and how much of it was design? Skibidi Toilet didn't spread like a normal meme. The very first clip got traction, but what happened after is what turned it into a phenomenon. Because if you pay attention to the details, something doesn't quite add up. For one, the format was suspiciously perfect. Clips were 11 seconds long, loud, repetitive, and required no context to understand. You didn't need to speak the same language, or even know what was going on, to find it strangely addictive. Exactly the type of video that platforms like YouTube Shorts and TikTok love to push. But then there was the release schedule. Instead of disappearing after one viral hit, new episodes began dropping multiple times a week, each one bigger, stranger, and more exaggerated than the last. Suddenly, people weren't just watching Skibidi Toilet, they were waiting for the next one, like it was a series with cliffhangers built in. By mid-2023, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Kids weren't treating this like a throwaway meme anymore, they were treating it like a TV show. TikTok was filled with edits, remixes, and fan theories. The algorithm wasn't just rewarding Skibidi Toilet, it was addicted to it. Which raises the question, was any of this really an accident? When you first see it, the whole thing feels too bizarre to compare to anything else. A human head popping out of a toilet repeating the same phrase over and over. But if you zoom out, the internet has given us this exact feeling before. In 2013, a random video called The Harlem Shake spread like wildfire. No context, no setup, just a sudden explosion of noise and movement that ended just as quickly as it began. It made no sense, but that was the point. The shorter and stranger it was, the easier it was to replicate. A few years later, it was Ugandan Knuckles, a deformed video game character running around VR chat shouting gibberish. Again, nothing about it looked polished or intentional, but the simplicity made it impossible to escape. Every corner of the internet was repeating the same few words. And then came the Grimace Shake, a corporate promotion from McDonald's hijacked by TikTok users who turned it into a horror meme. One clip bled into the next. Every video had the same format, the same ending, just remixed in 100 different ways. Different years, different platforms, different audiences. But somehow they all followed the same blueprint. Short clips, instantly recognizable, designed to be copied and remixed. Sound familiar? Because once you notice the pattern, it's hard to unsee. The same ingredients showing up again, only louder, only stranger, only harder to look away from. Not everyone was laughing though. As the series spread, parents began calling it brain rot. Teachers claimed it was making kids distracted in class. Critics wrote it off as meaningless junk, the kind of content you'd only watch if your attention span had already been destroyed. And yet, that outrage had the opposite effect. Because if you were a kid being told not to watch it, you wanted to watch it even more. If you were online long enough, the sheer flood of content made it impossible to avoid. It became a ritual. A new episode drops, and millions rush in to see what could possibly come next. The louder the backlash grew, the bigger the audience became. The criticism wasn't hurting it, but fueling it. The strangest part, none of this looked accidental. The creator behind the scenes wasn't just posting clips at random. He'd been uploading for years before this, experimenting with different formats, testing what the algorithm rewarded, throwing hundreds of ideas at the wall until one finally stuck. By the time Skibidi appeared, the rules were already written. Episodes were short enough to keep people watching until the end. The loops made them replayable. The bizarre imagery made them impossible to ignore in a feed full of bland content. Every choice, from the audio to the pacing, fit the exact triggers the platform was built to promote. And once those pieces locked together, the algorithm did the rest. What looked like chaos was actually precision. A series engineered not just to go viral once, but to stay viral week after week, month after month, until it stopped being a meme and started feeling like a machine. Years after its bizarre first appearance, the series hasn't vanished into meme obscurity, not even close. Instead, the creator began producing full-length episodes, entire storylines inside of bite-sized clips, and they're pulling tens of millions of views each. In January alone, a single episode could clear 70 million views in a week. To compare, some Netflix originals with celebrity casts, marketing budgets in the millions, and entire studios behind them barely scraped past 10 million before getting cancelled. All of this while one man and a free animation program are somehow outperforming the biggest names in television. But with every new upload, the question becomes harder to ignore. What does it actually feel like to be behind this? Because we already know this wasn't an accident. We've seen how he spent years experimenting, failing, posting hundreds of videos before the algorithm finally rewarded him. We've seen how the backlash only amplified the trend, turning criticism into fuel. We've seen how the format itself was perfectly engineered for virality. Short, strange, unforgettable. And when it hit, it must have felt like vindication. After years of obscurity, finally something worked. But now, 2 years later, this is his reality. Waking up each day, not to chase a new idea, but to continue feeding the same series. Crafting elaborate episodes about toilets with heads in them. Because once you become the guy who cracked the code, the pressure isn't just to succeed, it's to stay the guy who cracked the code. And here's the darker side of that success. Does he even have a choice anymore? The algorithm demands consistency. The audience expects escalation. Each episode has to be bigger, stranger, and more viral than the last. What began as a breakthrough might have quietly transformed into a cage. Is this the future he imagined when he was first throwing ideas at the wall, desperate for something to stick? Or has the very machine he set out to manipulate swallowed him whole? Maybe we're overthinking it. Maybe it really is just a guy having fun, making videos that happen to go viral. But maybe not. And that's where I'll leave it with you. The comment section can decide. Would you want this kind of pressure? To know you've mastered the system, but risk losing yourself inside it? Becoming viral does take skill, but is the payoff too great?